Welcome back. Let's talk about what would take a non-binding price floor and make it a binding price floor. So we want to think about a non-binding price floor. So a non-binding price floor. And what would make it binding? So let's go ahead and start out by just setting up our supply and demand diagram with a non-binding price floor, and then we'll think through an example. So we've got quantity versus price. Let's toss in a supply curve. We'll throw in a demand curve. And let's label our initial equilibrium point. So let's call this price P, E, 0. So this is just our starting point, right? Our equilibrium price initially. So we'll call it P sub E 0. And just for good practice, we'll label in Q, E 0 for our initial equilibrium quantity. So let's suppose that this is something like the market for milk. All right, so we're going to look at the market for milk. And suppose that the price of milk is like $5. We're just using round numbers to make this easy. So maybe it's $5 a gallon. Think about it that way, if that works for you. And the government has put in a price floor of $4. So they said, okay, $4 is going to be a minimum price of milk. So this is the price floor. So the government tells producers they can't sell milk for any less than $4 a gallon. And they tell buyers, hey buyers, you can't buy milk for anything less than $4 a gallon. And everybody kind of shrugs and says, well, milk's $5 a gallon. Why does this matter? Right? It doesn't. This is our non-binding price floor. So we start out initially with the price above the price floor. Everything's fine. This policy doesn't really matter at all. And then let's think about an event, a shock to the market that might make this matter. So full disclosure, this is loosely based on some events that have happened. The government actually does have price supports for milk. They try to support a minimum price for producers of milk. And every now and then, people wonder about it because it starts to bind, but it usually doesn't. All right, so let's think about our event. So what's our event? Let's suppose that it's a record production of milk by cows. Right? So record milk production by cows. All right, so you're probably wondering, well, why would cows produce a lot more milk? It's probably not actually a story about cows producing more milk. It could easily be a story about the price of beef. And if the price of beef falls, then farmers or ranchers don't slaughter their cows. They keep them as dairy cows instead, etc. This is all beyond economics. But that's our story here, right? Something has caused the cows to produce a lot more milk. It's probably actually that there are more cows producing milk. All right, so using our three-step process to think about what has happened, this is clearly a story about supply, right? When we're talking about production, this is a story about supply. And what happened to supply? Supply increased. Okay, so let's go back over to our supply and demand diagram, draw it in, and see what happened. So let's suppose supply has increased. So when supply increases, that's going to push down prices and increase quantity. Right? Without any regulation, we would see the price fall to a price that we could label like PE2. So this is our equilibrium price 2, right? This is our equilibrium price after the supply curve has shifted. So price should decrease, but the problem is it runs into that floor and then it can't fall any further. So what's our answer to number 3? Number 3, our third step, is draw this thing in and see what happens. So price falls to the floor. So our issue is price should actually fall below the floor. So if there was no price support, no price floor, etc., maybe this equilibrium price would be something like $3 a gallon. So our price falls to the floor, and if this new equilibrium price is less than the price floor, then we're going to end up with a problem. Right? So what's our problem? What's the distortion caused by this policy? So at this price floor of $4, how much milk are ranchers, farmers willing to supply? So we take this $4, we trace it over till we hit this new supply curve. Right? So at that $4, they're willing to supply some amount of milk. But at $4, how many gallons of milk, pints, however we're measuring this thing, how much do buyers want to buy? What's the quantity demanded? So we take this $4 and we just trace over until we run into our demand curve. We say, how many do they want to buy? So unsurprisingly, when prices are higher than the equilibrium price, remember the price should be PE2, $3. The price should be $3, but this price floor makes it $4 instead. So because the price can't fall all the way, we never get the equilibrium. So our price is above the equilibrium price. So what does that mean in sort of simple terms? At high prices, high being relative to the equilibrium, right? $4 relative to $3, sellers want to sell a lot and buyers only want to buy a few. So our issue is that we end up with a surplus. Right? So if our price, equilibrium price, is less than the price floor, then our quantity supplied is greater than our quantity demanded, and we've got a surplus. So this is the trade-off to policies. This is the difficulty when it comes to designing policies. If we don't let markets work and clear, we're going to end up with some sort of distortion. The trade-off of supporting milk prices for farmers is that they're going to produce more milk. And buyers aren't going to buy all of it, and we're going to end up with a surplus. Sometimes we end up just dumping this stuff down the drain. What a waste. That's the problem with some of these distorting policies, is that there's always a trade-off to it. Hopefully you're getting a feel for how a shock to a market can make a non-binding price floor into a binding price floor. Why we can put a policy in place that initially doesn't matter, but eventually maybe it does. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.